Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going to be diving into something I know you're curious about,
Yeah.
hair follicles.
Oh, very cool.
And I bet you didn't know that you were born with over 5 million of them.
Really? I had no idea.
I know, it's pretty mind-blowing when you think about just how complex our bodies really are, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So we've got this excerpt from the Cleveland Clinic about hair follicles. And
Yeah.
I have to admit, even I was surprised by some of the stuff in here.
Oh, yeah. It's definitely a topic that goes deeper than you might expect. I think
And sure,
most people, when they think about hair, they just think about the hair itself.
right,
But those tiny hair follicles are like working so hard behind the scenes.
totally.
Yeah.
So to kick things off, what's something about hair follicles that you find particularly fascinating?
You know what gets me is that they're involved in way more than just growing hair.
Oh, okay.
They play this really crucial role in wound healing, and they even help create new blood vessels and brain cells.
Wait, hold on. I need to rewind for a second.
Okay.
Creating brain cells from hair follicles.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's a process called neurogenesis.
Okay.
And it's not just brain cells. They help form new blood vessels, too, through a process called angiogenesis. It's like there are these tiny little factories constantly building and repairing things.
Wow. I never would have guessed. But before we get too deep into that, let's make sure we're all on the same page.
Yeah.
Can you give us like a simple explanation of what a hair follicle actually is for anyone who might not be familiar?
Sure. So imagine like a tiny tube-like structure that's embedded in your skin.
Okay.
That's your hair follicle. And inside each one is a hair root where the hair actually grows.
Okay.
The article uses this great analogy. They say the follicle is like a sock and the hair is like your foot.
Oh, that makes it so much easier to picture.
Right.
Okay, so I have a confession to make.
Okay.
I have definitely yanked out a hair or two in my lifetime
Of course, who hasn't?
and thought, oh no, did I just permanently damage something? You know, like, is that hair follicle gone forever?
Oh, yeah, you and everyone else, that's a super common misconception.
Okay, good.
Thankfully, pulling out a hair usually just removes the hair shaft, not the entire follicle.
Okay.
So the follicle itself stays safe beneath the skin, ready to grow new hair.
Okay, that's a huge GE relief.
I know, right?
But it also makes those tiny medics even more impressive, right?
Yeah.
Because you mentioned they help with wound healing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So picture this. You get a cut immediately. Those cells in your hair follicles jump into action.
Oh, wow.
They're like the first responders releasing signals that attract white blood cells to fight infection and kickstart that whole healing process.
Hold up, so you're saying those little hair follicles are sending out SOS signals?
Basically, yeah.
That's wild, but doesn't our body already have a whole system for healing cuts? Why are the hair follicles so important in that?
You're right. Wound healing is a really complex process involving multiple systems. But hair follicles are crucial because they're often located near the surface of the skin.
Right? Where those injuries happen, so they're like the front line of defense, and their quick response can really make a difference.
That makes sense. So not only do they grow hair, but they're also sending out signals and helping to rebuild blood vessels and brain cells.
It's true.
These hair follicles are like little superheroes.
I know, right?
But let's get back to the basics for a minute.
Okay.
Can you break down the different phases of how hair actually grows?
Of course. So there are 3 main phases: anagen, catagen, and telogen.
Okay.
Anagen is the active growth phase, and this can last anywhere from 2 to 7 years.
Wow.
During this phase, hair grows about a centimeter per month.
Okay.
Then comes catagen, which is a short transition period of about 2 weeks where the hair detaches from its blood supply.
Gotcha.
Finally, we have telogen, which is a resting phase that lasts up to 4 months, and that's when the hair eventually sheds.
So basically the length of that anagen phase is what determines how long your hair can actually grow.
That's why some people can grow their hair super long, while others struggle to get it past a certain point.
Exactly. And the length of each phase is influenced by a bunch of factors, including genetics, hormones, and overall health. So it's different for everyone.
That explains a lot. It makes you wonder what else is going on beneath the surface, right? Like,
Yeah.
what happens when those hair follicles aren't working properly?
Well, that's when we start seeing hair follicle conditions. And there's actually a whole range from alopecia areata, which causes patchy hair loss, to things like folliculitis, which is basically inflammation of the hair follicles.
Okay.
And then there are more serious conditions like hidradenitis suppurativa.
Whoa. Those are some intense names.
Mhm.
So what would be some signs that someone might have a hair follicle condition? Is it just hair loss, or are there other things to watch out for?
Hair loss is a common symptom, but it can also involve skin problems like pimples or rashes around the hair follicles.
Okay.
It really depends on the specific condition. If you notice anything unusual or persistent, it's always best to get it checked out by a doctor.
Good advice. I'm already starting to pay more attention to my scalp, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So let's say you're someone who wants to keep those hair follicles as healthy as possible. Any tips on how to do that?
Definitely first and foremost, try to avoid any habits that might damage those precious follicles, like pulling or twisting your hair excessively.
Okay.
A balanced diet is also crucial for hair health.
So all those vitamins and minerals we hear about actually do make a difference.
They absolutely do.
Okay, good to know.
And don't underestimate the impact of stress.
Oh, yeah.
Chronic stress can actually trigger hair loss. So finding healthy ways to manage stress is important for your overall well-being, including your hair follicles.
That's a good reminder for all of us, especially in today's world. I'm guessing sun protection is important too, right?
You got it.
Yeah.
Wearing a hat or using sunscreen on your scalp can help protect those hair follicles from harmful UV rays.
Okay.
And if you do happen to get a cut or scrape, taking care of it properly is key to preventing infection and promoting healing.
Okay, this is all great advice. But let's be real, we've all done things that probably weren't the best for our hair follicles at some point.
Oh, for sure.
So my big question is, can those hair follicles actually repair themselves if they get damaged?
The amazing thing is that they're actually quite resilient.
Okay.
They can often repair themselves after minor injuries, and new hair will grow back.
Right.
But just like any other part of your body, repeated damage or serious injury can lead to scarring.
Right.
And that can make it tougher for hair to regrow,
Yeah.
which could result in thinner hair in that area.
So basically, be kind to your hair follicles and they'll be kind to you.
Think of them as delicate gardens that need nurturing to thrive.
Love that analogy. It's amazing how much we've learned about these tiny structures that we often take for granted, and we're not done yet. There's still so much to explore when it comes to the world of hair follicles, but first, we've been digging deep into the science of hair follicles, like how they grow, how they heal, how they're connected to all these different systems in our body.
Yeah, it's really fascinating.
But it makes me wonder about something else.
Okay.
We focus on the biology,
Right.
but hair is also such a big part of culture and society, right? Think about all the different hairstyles, the trends, the symbolism.
Absolutely. Hair has always been such a powerful way for people to express themselves.
Right.
From ancient times to today.
Totally.
Think about like elaborate braids, colorful dyes, intricate cuts. They all kind of tell a story.
Right. And it's not even just about aesthetics either. Hair can be a symbol of status group affiliation or even rebellion. It can be used to conform to societal norms or to completely challenge them.
Exactly. And I think it's fascinating how those cultural interpretations can vary so widely across different societies and throughout history.
Oh, for sure.
What's considered beautiful or acceptable in one culture might be completely different in another.
Totally. So we've got this amazing scientific understanding of how hair follicles work, and then this whole other layer of cultural meaning and symbolism associated with the hair itself.
Right.
Do you think those two things ever, intersect? Could our knowledge of hair biology actually change how we view the cultural aspects of hair?
That's a really interesting question.
Yeah.
I think it definitely has the potential to, for example, as we learn more about the genetics of hair, it might challenge some of our assumptions about race and ethnicity, which are often linked to hair texture and color.
Wow, I hadn't thought about that. It's like science and culture are having a conversation,
Yeah.
and the more we learn, the more nuanced that conversation becomes.
Exactly. And I think it's important to keep both perspectives in mind.
Yeah.
We can appreciate the science of hair follicles while also respecting the cultural significance that hair holds for different people and communities.
Well said. This deep dive has definitely given me a whole new appreciation for something I used to take for granted.
Yeah.
I'm looking at my hair and everyone else's hair in a completely different light now.
I know. It's amazing what you discover when you take a closer look, isn't it?
It really is. So, as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with something to ponder. We've explored the science, the cultural impact, the connections to our overall health.
Right.
But what about the future of hair? What new discoveries might be on the horizon? Could we one day regenerate hair follicles for people experiencing hair loss? Or maybe even personalize hair growth based on our individual genes? The possibilities seem endless.
Absolutely. The world of hair research is constantly evolving, and I have no doubt that we'll continue to make groundbreaking discoveries in the years to come.
Yeah,
It's an exciting time to be following this field.
I couldn't agree more.